Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Euro 2024. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
And whilst England is still in it, it's still revolving around Euro 2024. This feels like a
Same
boxer
shit, different
hanging
game.
in there, like a boxer that's on the ropes and you're getting to round 8 and round 9, and then they're going to have this massive flurry in the final couple of rounds and finish it with a knockout in the final. But that's very optimistic.
Can I add to that analogy? You're like, yeah, the England are the boxer on the ropes, but your other man is just not hitting England hard enough.
Yeah,
He's basically
exactly
why England
that.
aren't going down.
Yeah, completely. Good. So yeah, let's get into the Euro content and see what we get into. Review the games, talk about our fantasy teams and where we stand moving forward. Obviously, Spain, Germany, Portugal, France, England, Switzerland, and Netherlands, Turkey were the 4 quarter finalists. Start with Spain, Germany.
Should we start with Euro fantasy first?
Oh, you want to get that out of the way, do you?
Yeah, I'd rather
sure.
just say, I got 38 points and then ask you what you got.
Okay, fair play. I got 47, primarily driven by defensive points, James. I captained Mbappe on the first night. And I captained Ronaldo on the first night, excuse me. And I moved it to Jude Bellingham on the second day. So it actually was sod all. Bruno Fernandes, nothing. Abisha, nothing. Nico Williams, nothing. Jamal Musiala, nothing. Kylian Mbappe, Alvaro Morata, nothing. You see a trend here?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Defensively, I went with Costa over Simon on day 1, and that came in with 7 points, so that was fine. And I stuck with that. I didn't twist to Jordan Pickford.
Obviously.
João Cancelo, Theo Hernandez, Denzel Dumfries all returned for me. Dumfries ended up with an assist and 4 ball recoveries, James, so that was quite nice. John Stones, just a 3-pointer, so nothing. So really, it was the 4 defensive players in the double Portuguese defense, Theo Hernandez and Dumfries, that have got me up to 47 points. Small rise, 450 to 388. I still want to try and figure out how I can get into the top 100K, but when there's no captaincy points to be had anywhere and no hauls to be had anywhere, I don't see that happening.
We're hitting the stage of the competition where you should strongly consider captain defenders. And I know a lot of people are already on that kind of train. But in terms of your best chance of a haul here, it's the De Vrij from Saturday night, for example, or Jules Koundé with a clean sheet and the ball recoveries. I mean, those who've had a successful fantasy weekend largely have had France or Portugal defenders. Definitely seen a few teams out there with like 4 or 5 France defensive players, like a blanket France, and those guys have scored more than my 15 player attempts combined. So those were obviously the only 2 teams to keep a clean sheet. Bit of a mess. So Hernandez, Costa, my only returnees, even the 3 Dutch players that I gambled on, nothing. Thought Cody Gakpo had returned for me for a moment, but closer inspection revealed that was certainly an own goal and a very strange goal. So yeah, a bit of shit. Going to wild card now. I take it you're doing the same, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason to save the wild card now for the final. But in terms of who I've got that is now no longer in the competition, I've lost 4 Portugal, Costa, Cancelo, Bruno Fernandes, Ronaldo. I've lost Musiala and I've lost Abisha. So I've lost 6 players in total. So yeah, it absolutely makes sense for me to wildcard now.
Yeah, I think just a couple of tips on wildcard. I mean, I'm not going to, we all know the 4 teams fairly well. I'm not going to give you anything out there that's going to be outrageous or outlandish, particularly as well when you can obviously see the France and Spain teams. So like Dani Olmo will probably come into the Spain team. I've seen quite a bit of talk of going at least 3 players from each team. With
You
the
mean
thinking of
hedge your bets, basically.
exactly that, with the thinking then that, even if you had, say, you went France, England heavily and it was Spain, Netherlands final, as long as you've gone 3 from the other 2, you'll guarantee yourself with 5 free transfers to be able to get 11 for the final. It's a couple of things that contradict against that a little bit. One is that doesn't quite work if your two goalkeepers go through. And I actually kind of prefer the strategy of doing something like 6-5-3-1. So I'm actually looking at probably having my whole team from the France-Spain game on the Tuesday night. So probably six French because there's probably just a little bit more faith in them defensively. Five Spanish, and then three England, one Dutch, or three Dutch, one England. Just making sure that the one is not the goalkeeper. So if I went three England, don't go Verbruggen. Go with
Right.
a defensive Dutch player and attacking. And that also will still guarantee you being able to get to 11 for the final without having to take hits. It's also worth saying that, oh, I want 11 for the final. You ain't getting 11 returnees in the final. So I
No.
really wouldn't stress about it that much. So if you're sitting there going, oh, I need 11 for the final, I don't want to do this, don't worry about it. It's not the biggest thing. The more important thing is trying to get your points now.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Um,
I think the thing with this game, James, is because of the short format and also the fact that it's not every season, right? It's every who's going to remember what you did in Euro 2021 or 22 or whatever the year was when it was happened 21,
well, I
right?
might have until I
Because
got 38 points at the weekend.
well, exactly. But you'd rather gamble and go for it than try and maintain some legacy overall rank history in this competition
Yeah,
because it
always
doesn't
gamble in this
matter.
game.
And that gamble for me in this means an all-in strategy. Try and figure out a way of if you want to go for it. If you really want to go for it and try and win, that's going to be someone who has the cojones to go for an all-in strategy and pick Spain and England, and then figure out who they're going to go with in the final, perhaps as probably favourites for the two semis. But let's
Well,
yeah,
there's that
try.
as well. Because part of my thinking in terms of going really heavy France Spain is obviously that. To be honest, it's not improbable, as we'll probably talk about during this podcast. It's not improbable that both games end 0-0 in the
Yeah,
semi-finals.
yeah,
That's not improbable. But what I definitely do know is for the final as well, I want my blanket of France or Spain.
correct.
I don't want, oh, I've got three Spanish players and I've got to
Need
do
to
this. Oh, because
add the
Spain have gone
others and
through.
stuff. Yeah, yeah. Just
Yeah,
get them in now.
yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit.
makes
They're
sense.
they're they're going to be the whichever one of them wins is going to be favourite in the final, and that's where I want my blanket coverage to be is from France, Spain. So I'm going very heavy into those two, even though they're playing each other, because I still think England Netherlands is still a flip of a coin. It's not like we're sitting here as well going, hey, guess what? England's now going to open up, and I expect a 4-4 draw on Wednesday night. Like it's not, is it? So as I said, is more likely that both games ended 0-0 than one of these became a thriller. I think that
Agreed.
feels
Yeah.
more likely.
And I think that's played out by the fact that obviously we had three of the quarterfinals go to extra time
Uh,
and get very cagey as we went further into extra time. I mean, Spain, a very, very late winner, but you kind of saw that was drifting towards penalties until that happened. It's
The
going to
only
be
thing,
tight.
the only things that can
Fear of
change that,
losing.
the only things that can particularly change those two games, I think, is obviously an early goal in the England game, or specifically in the France game if Spain scored early.
Yeah.
I've dropped
Cool.
from 6K to 16K, Such. So I've got a
Okie
one.
dokie.
I'm number one. I've put a one in front of my rank now.
If that's what makes you happy, you do it.
Well, no, it
You do
doesn't. But
it.
there were other things that made me happy at the weekend.
Good. So Spain, Germany. I mean, both the Friday games were on paper. It was if you don't take your chances, you're not going to win. With Germany out XG'd Spain, Portugal out XG'd France, and both are now out. I mean, Germany with 23, 24 shots in the game as well. But I do think Spain were the better team.
I didn't know there was any XG in the Portugal game.
Yeah, there was.
Was that just a one Ronaldo's effort in extra time? Was it? Was that it?
It was both teams were over one, James.
Okay, that's
Probably from just volume. I mean, Portugal had four big chances and France did have two,
did
1.8 to
they?
1.1. Yeah, mate.
Well, I must have gone for a piss a lot then during that game. We'll come back onto that.
But listen, Germany had five and Spain had four. Germany notched the next year higher than two, but are out.
I'll tell you what I really thought during Portugal France. I was thinking what we want here is some sort of finding out of corruption, and we'll just let Germany back in and just let Spain and Germany play each other again for a place in the final. Because I think the two most enjoyable teams in this tournament so far of the power nations were in that first quarterfinal on Friday, and it's very much what we suspected. I think few things came out of it. One, it definitely could have gone either way. Um, I think for Spain, looking forward, there was a few things that came out of it that showed me there was a real vulnerability. And perhaps not being the Spain that we've necessarily seen in the past. Like unless I knew I was watching Spain as I knew I was watching Spain, after Dani Olmo had given the lead, I would not have known I was watching Spain for the rest of that second half. They failed to keep the ball as much as other teams failed to keep the ball. They gave away chances too easily during that period. I think there are massive vulnerabilities across their back four, which means when you put a power player in there like a Fulkrug is going to cause them a threat. If Spain Netherlands was the final, Weghorst would give Spain problems, I think, even if it's just coming on as a sub late in the game. I think they're quite weak back there where they can get bullied about a little bit. In midfield, they're obviously exceptional with Ruiz and Rodri, but didn't keep the ball as well as that. And obviously later in the game when it was winning, and understand why, when Yamal and Williams got taken off, what replaced it was nowhere near the quality. And when Germany equalised, I thought, I'm not sure if Spain are going to be able to come back and win this. And fair game to them for doing so very late in extra time. So there's that problem. I think later in games, is Spain's team going to become less of a threat? They're not like the typical Spain of the great tiki-taka team because of those two 1v1 specialists, which holds the pitch so high and wide for them. When they came off, you didn't see the same threat in them, and it just didn't keep the ball in the way you would expect a Spanish team to keep it. You would expect them to push the opposition back and control and dictate. It just felt like the whole final half hour of the second half was just played in Spain's half. And that's not what I'd expect from them. So as good as they are, and I think they're probably the best of the four left in it, there's vulnerabilities in them.
Well, I mean, when
Very
we talk
much so.
about Portugal, France are getting a fair amount of stick for being a little bit defensive and just as in the same way that England are being just a bit boring to watch. France is solid, like physicality wise, defensively with a Kante in there, Saliba, a Pamecano, Kunde, whoever is at the back. They're going to be difficult to break down just because physically they're going to be big and strong and very structured. And so Spain might find that, yes, again, they will have a lot of the ball, but breaking them down might not be as easy. Um,
And
I don't
also
see that being a high scoring game.
Spain have obviously got a few suspensions now. Norman
Yeah,
suspended,
Carvajal, right?
and Danny Carvajal. Danny Carvajal, who obviously, I mean, fair game to him for getting me a 2 point in Euro Fantasy despite the red card. Obviously, couldn't be subbed out with a red card. Be really interesting to see what they do now with those two suspended. So when they largely changed the team against Albania, Daniel Vivian played right-sided centre back, and Jesus Navas, formerly of Manchester City, played as a right back. Now, I don't know how well that's going to do if you're putting Mbappe in that area. Although Mbappe doesn't look like himself, I think we can probably acknowledge at the moment. But that defense, I think there's a good chance it's going to look quite weak tomorrow night. I'm a bit worried from that perspective that if France, exactly as you say, defend with the strength that we know that they've got, I think Spain will give up. I don't think that Spain backline tomorrow night is going to be as strong as Portugal's was on Friday night, basically. So yeah, a little bit concerned for them. Morata is available, by the way, even though it came up during the game that he'd been given a yellow card and therefore would have been suspended. It wasn't Morata that was booked. So Morata, as far as I'm aware, is available to play tomorrow night. Um, for Germany, I think this was kind of listening to what Germans are saying, kind of expectation of the tournament. They didn't really fancy themselves that much. But give a good account of themselves. I thought the way they chased the game after they went behind was quite impressive. An extra time could have gone either way. Wirtz obviously missed that really good pullback chance in the first half of extra time. It was a surprise that Emre Can played, but I think that was to try and be quite aggressive against Spain's midfield two in the first half. But in the first half, they rather just countered each other a little bit. Um, Good effort from Germany, but Spain, I think, have shown so far that they're probably the best team. But within that, there's vulnerabilities, which, based on what we've just seen on games generally, I'm a bit concerned for them tomorrow night against the French.
Well, France against Portugal. I thought Portugal were the better team over the duration and should have gone through, but they just didn't take their chances. And a lot of fingers will be pointed at Cristiano Ronaldo in the similar way that fingers are being pointed at Harry Kane and Mbappe, which is quite interesting. I thought it quite funny that both Mbappe and Kane, as lead penalty takers, came off before the penalties in those games, but um, circumstances around that as opposed to not wanting to take penalties. I thought Portugal were the better team, but they should have taken their chances. France, on the other hand, do have a little bit of threat. I thought Dembele played quite well. I haven't seen
He,
a
he
lot
got
of
given
him,
the man of the match after
but I do
coming on as
think
a sub.
I looked at it and I thought, actually, you know what, as a number 10, you've got a lot of different aspects to your game, particularly driving runs and what have you. But I felt with France, a lot of their efforts they weren't from distance, but they weren't close in. It was like in and around the edge of the box or just inside the box type thing. And they did. I never felt like they were actually going to score from any of them. Yeah,
No, France are just a way more powerful version of England at the moment.
right.
I've been saying
Probably
this.
yeah. Is a good way of
I've been
putting it.
saying this a lot over the last month, reflecting on England's quarter final with France in Qatar, and reflecting on it more every time I watch France more and more. And did England play that well last night, or were France just happy because they were winning for the majority of the game? And I'm just becoming more and more convinced that France are just quite happy not to have it. There's things that I found really frustrating with them on Friday night. And I know people say, oh, England should do better with the players they've got. With these, you just think they're so strong. They're such a powerful team. And I look at things like Friday night, and I know you don't want to give Ronaldo a sniff in front of goal because whatever people think, like he's obviously immaculate with his finishing and stuff. But you don't have to worry about him going over the top of you anymore. It's like squeeze the pitch. The danger with Ronaldo is like, could a ball flash across the box and he'll get on the end or something? And the one he put over in extra time,
Yeah,
I think it was Upamecano. He ended up having Upamecano was looking away from him when Ronaldo had the shot because
he didn't know where he was going.
yeah, his movement had just buried him so bad.
Yeah,
So I think just like get yourself higher up the pitch and be a bit braver. At the same time, I know why they don't do that because it's like, oh, on the left hand side, that Liao was really quick. I don't want him going over the top. But Jules Koundé, who I think has been outstanding in this tournament, defended him really well. Just think things like that. Get higher up the pitch. Feels like their distances, and it's the same for England. The distances are really safe without the ball. I feel like they can be braver, but it felt like watching the game that if you'd have said to the teams after an hour, "Do you just want to get on with the penalties now?" They probably would have both taken it. I mean, Portugal would have fancied it because of what Costa did against Slovenia. And the French obviously backed themselves, and the pens they took were great as well.
they were scored all five. Yeah.
It's a tough watch. I did kind of,
Particularly extra time. You really did feel like, yeah, exactly like you said, just get this done with.
I
Because I
don't want
was
to
up
say
late with the
like,
kids, we were watching it, and they're kind of thinking, you know what, just may as well go to bed here because it's getting sleepy anyway.
I don't want to say that this game defined the tournament, but it almost feels like it sums it up a little bit. People are really frustrated with the quality of the tournament. It's largely because a lot of the really good teams, or so called, have just been really defensive and negative in their play. So many play with the fear of losing rather than what the reward of winning is. And I do get it. It's 2 years worth of pressure to and you're what you've done in the 2 years is dead as soon as you lose in a knockout match. But I think most of us probably 10, 15 minutes in went, this will be a long night. Most of us were saying in the build up, it'll be a long night or it'll be first goal wins or something like that. When you've got two really good teams like this, it shouldn't be that way, should it? What did you think
Portugal
about?
completed 839 passes in the
Yeah,
game.
because
That's a
France are
lot.
happy to sit there
Yeah, just
and let them do
side to
it.
side though. Yeah.
Was you watching it you was watching it in Portugal, obviously.
Yeah.
Was there loads of Portuguese around you or not? Like, did you
No,
pick
I
anything
watched
up in
it at
terms
home in the
of,
end because
oh, you're
went out to
useless?
training with the kids and we decided we were just going to watch it at home. I think I just kind of thought, you know what? I don't expect it to be really rowdy and lively. And in the end, I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. France,
They'll give Spain a tough game.
here's the irony though, despite what we said about criticism of the defensive, if the French open up against Spain, that's the most likely way of them losing. And I think with the concerns that I've got about Spain defensively going into this one, France will just be the same again and defend really well. I mean, like I said, Kunde's been brilliant at right back. I think William Saliba has been the outstanding defender across the whole tournament. Actually, they don't give up chances easily. You look at the midfield in front of it. I mean, that three they picked Camavinga, Tchouaméni, and Kante is so strong in front of that. Griezmann isn't linking the team as I think he'd want to at the moment, and was obviously another one to come off fairly early. You know they've got that pace on the count almost irrespective of who plays. And Mbappe, as I alluded to earlier, though, he's not right at the moment. There was a moment where he did a sprint down the right hand touchline. And it was one of them moments, and you do have it with him, and you go, oh my God, he's so quick. Like, even though you know how quick he is, I said this with Clates when he missed the chance against Austria, you know how quick he is, but still when he does it, you go, oh, blind me. But he did it. And then they showed this kind of like ultra HD image of him as he was running and the power in him. And you could see his mask was moving
Right.
when he was running. And you think, how comfortable is that for you? And admittedly, he's really going some at a full 100% speed, but the mask was like jittering. It's like, how comfortable can it be for him and stuff? And he took another whack, didn't he? When he actually did well defending on a corner. I don't know. And he's obviously playing in a lot of pain, isn't he? And he's got
Yep,
to be
no doubt about
uncomfortable
it.
wearing that thing on his face. So I think it's
For
one
sure.
where if it's not major international tournament, I don't think he's playing football at the moment.
Agreed.
Is my take. So you know what the capability is for him. Um, Sad for Ronnie that this is probably his international end, I suppose. And I think after the events of the Slovenia game, I was even though I've been very critical of him and he kind of pantomime villain, I wanted him to score actually Friday night. Yeah, good team Portugal, but not enough at the top end. And
No,
France ultimately on the penalties took really great penalties, which I think is even more praised them considering what Costa had done in the game before. But yeah, you can put this football match in the bin and forget it.
let's talk about England. Or should we leave England to the end? Should we just get through Netherlands and Turkey?
You can do. I don't know what you're going to get from me coherently on Netherlands and Turkey. I had a big important job during the first half of this match because me and my dad went for a Turkish, so I put the game on my phone.
Oh, fair
And
play.
they're all like, "Can you let us know if we score it and stuff like that?" So
Okay.
I shouted goal when they scored, and all the waiters come running
Nice.
over.
Nice.
But I didn't stay there for the rest of the game. I went back to the pub for the second half. So maybe I was a lucky and then unlucky jinx for them. Look, Turkey have been one of the uh, fun teams at this tournament, but I have to say I couldn't help thinking when they were winning think this would be the easiest game that England would have in this tournament if they'd have won, including all the
Yeah.
teams who played in the group, because they're open and they absolutely give you a chance. They'll give you some problems as well. But I think man for man quality. I generally think if we'd have played Turkey, we'd win by a couple of goals. Not that I'm disappointed with the outcome because I don't think the Dutch are anywhere near as strong as some others may think. As kind of proven by this, right? Like on a different day, Turkey win this. They
Yep.
just had a real
Yep.
bad period when they was winning the game. And vulnerabilities as shown by the two goals. De Vrij ends up, it's a good leaping header. Your keeper, Mert Gunok, he goes for the Superman save again, doesn't he? Don't get it quite right this time. And the second goal, I've watched it back so many times, I can't make my mind up on it. Because when I first saw it,
Yep.
when it happened live, I went penalty. When he made contact, and then okay, it's not a penalty because it's going in the goal. And you see it back a few times, and you're like, hang on, so Gakpo doesn't touch it. The Turkey player does. And Gakpo does catch him a bit in the calf, but it doesn't feel like a foul either. It's just a really, really
No.
weird goal. Gakpo's obviously
Clumsy.
only trying to play the ball,
Yep.
um, and almost impedes himself by going into the back of Mulder as he's trying to defend it. Which is a really, really weird goal. And after that, Turkey had good chances, right? I mean, the Dutch can be thankful for some really good saves from Bart Verbruggen, Mickey van der Ven, who come on, cleared one off the line. Yeah, Turkey were really unlucky. This Dutch team has vulnerabilities as well. I mean, people talk about England and the draw and how lucky England have been, but the Dutch finished third in their group and have played Romania and Turkey to get to a semi-final. Like you couldn't
Yep.
dream of finishing third in a group that would be your path, and now to walk into this very average England actually as well. Um, they don't. they don't give me fear, the Dutch. Like the Dutch can beat England on Wednesday night, definitely, but there's nothing to fear here. You think of the great Dutch teams we'd have played in the past, I don't want to play them. Never felt like
It's
this. I even said
it's
before the last
definitely
16,
more.
when it looked like we was going to get the Dutch, it was like, I'd probably rather play the Dutch than Austria, actually.
Yeah, I think obviously with the Dutch, the threat is at the top end of the pitch more than it is at the back, I think, necessarily. I mean, defensively, Van Dijk is good. We know about Nathan Ake. I don't know whether Van der Ven will start, but if the bridge starts anyway, we see some of these players regularly in the Premier League, so we know what they're about. But I don't feel like defensively they're amazingly solid that would struggle to break them down. But they do have some talent at the other end of the pitch where they could cause us some problems. I mean, Gakpo's had a really good tournament so far with Simons and Depay. I think if there's anything, they'll score a couple of goals and catch us. But I see England going through. If I'm honest with you, I see England winning 1-0, 2-0, that kind of thing.
You can only see England winning 1-0 if it's a win, mate. Come on. Yeah, look, Gakpo's had a really good tournament. I think Depay was much better on Saturday, and his delivery for the cross shows the one thing we've never doubted about him is that the technical quality's there. But I had a discussion with Clates last week about whether they might be better off without him being in the team because, let's be honest, again, his Weghorst comes into the game at half time and starts causing that real chaos. It's probably the worst thing that could happen for England is Weghorst starting because that's powerful. And
Yep.
they can be a lot more direct with what they do, both in terms of deeper build up and also if they get into wider areas, you're way more worried about the ball coming into the box rather than trying to defend Depay from crosses, for example. Although he obviously likes to drop short, Gakpo would be the one you'd be concerned of in the air, but otherwise you wouldn't. I think Simmons very much flatters to deceive. I think he's a good player, but I think he loses composure at the key moments at the end. And those Shouter and Rinders are good players, and particularly like Rinders, they're good footballers, not great footballers.
Let's talk
And,
about.
and England can
Well,
certainly create numerical advantages in the middle of the pitch. Whether they use them properly are to be confirmed.
well, England won, Switzerland won, and then obviously we're going through on penalties. That that there was a period in the second half from probably about 50 minutes up until maybe 55 minutes up until Switzerland scored, where I would just felt emotionless because they were passing the ball around side to side. They were controlling the game so well, Switzerland, and we did. We sat in, and it was just like, okay, come on, do something. It just really felt like, am I really watching this? And my club team do this quite regularly. We just sit back and you're just like, why? Come on, man. But it really sucked the emotion out of me when Switzerland were doing that. And they control the ball really well. They create really nice passing movements and stuff. But by the same token, when they scored, I felt pretty confident actually that England were going to come back and get an equaliser because it put the emphasis on us to jump on the front foot, not because of what I'd seen before, not because of what I'd seen before, James, because when we're 1-0 down, now the emphasis is we've got to go and attack. And when we do go and attack, I felt we had enough firepower. But I didn't think we'd go on and win. I thought when we were 1-0 down, yeah, we'll go and equalise. But I also didn't think, we'll go and get another goal and win it 2-1. It's going to go to extra time. What do you think of the new system then? I mean, there's a lot been made of it in terms of three at the back. Konsa had a good game.
Yes, yes, he did. He did really well, Ezri
I thought he
Konsa.
came in and did really well.
Nothing new. That was as good as expectation. I was really concerned about him because, as I said in the build-up, he only really plays on the right side of defence for Villa. So no, I thought he equipped himself very well. He's got good spatial awareness when he's defending. Like he doesn't get too tight, and you can play someone like Embolo, who's like quite powerful. You can get too tight and he spin you. He didn't. Kept his kind of arm length distance. Was able to see things. Yeah, I thought he did really well. Him and Gay, forget this tournament, but even just moving forward into the future, have been major pluses for England for us to feel way more confident about centre backs going forward. Because largely all we've seen in big games for the whole of Gareth Southgate's tenure is Maguire and Stones or Walker dropping into the back three as part of that as well. Before I took the system to just a word on Switzerland, because otherwise they could get swamped and missed out here.
Agreed.
Um, they were a better team. as far as I'm
I
concerned.
agree.
I
From a
sat here.
football point of view, yeah.
I sat here this time last week and said similar about Slovakia, but for very different reasons this time. I think on that side of the draw, absolutely convinced, irrespective of what happens Wednesday night, I'm not going to be convinced differently. Switzerland were the best team on our half of the draw. And there is a little bit of credit to take them for beating them. Because, oh, it's in Switzerland. I said so much of that last week. This is an extremely well coached football team who have really nice fluidity and a really interesting layer to their build up with their wing backs and their wide forwards, and switching of the positions is really, really dangerous. The combinations with Arbisher, Vargas, and then Xhaka linking on that left hand side, and then with Reader and Doy on the right hand side, after time, you're like, I don't know which one's playing which position here and stuff. They're really good at what they do. And at the back line, they're really strong defensively. Manuel Kanji, obviously, unfortunately, missed the penalty, and it's a shit penalty, but has been one of the standout defenders in this tournament as well. We know his quality from Manchester City already. Good football team, really nice balance. Got elements of that really good Bayer Leverkusen team about them, and little bits of Bologna, who were outstanding last season as well. Good football team. Unlucky. If they were playing the Netherlands on Wednesday night, absolutely certain that Switzerland would beat them.
Yep.
I'm not that confident of England doing the job as I would have been on Switzerland. I'd have been coming in a really heavy today, going, yeah, I really think Switzerland will beat the Dutch. Um, Good team, really well coached. That's almost a positive for England in terms of they beat a decent football team. But it is also a football team that England should still be able to dominate, which is part of the frustration. So in terms of the system, obviously a lot was made of it in the build up, and then we had this big kind of leak by sort of late Friday night, Saturday morning, that it was going to be, yep, Saka left wing back, Trippier right wing back. It's going to be the same team, but the system's going to be tweaked. Obviously Konsa comes in for the suspended Mark Gay. Obviously it doesn't take anyone 5 seconds to realize that Bukayo Saka is playing on the right, and I did wonder if there might have been an influence on that on Dan and Doy playing, because he played multiple different positions for Switzerland in the games previously. And Wimmer come on later in the game. It's not Wimmer, is it? What's his name? Come on, Vidmer, sorry, who came on and played all the group games in the deeper right wing back position. We thought he'd probably come back in. When he wasn't in the team, I did wonder if there was a preparation where Saka might have played on the left. But once they saw Vidmer wasn't playing, they went, no, back on the right. That said, to flip it, Saka obviously had Arbisher and Rodriguez on absolute toast on that side. It was kind of flashbacks to the first half hour against Serbia. He was just massively on it. And interestingly, obviously attacking it from a deeper position. But essentially, although it was obviously a change of system to back three, fundamentally there weren't huge differences to what England had been doing previously. We still had Kieran Trippier ending up really high. I mean, there is a point when you look at the kind of the touch map and average positions from the weekend, and you do wonder what the worth of Trippier is there, and can you just get away with? I mean, we've hardly seen him, but just playing Anthony Gordon in that position. I think that moment has gone now because of the caliber of opponents we hopefully going to play over the next 2 games. The one thing you'd say about the Dutch is, yes, clearly there's threatening players. Do you want to play Gordon at wing back now? Questionable. But the way England playing set up, it's a case to say you really would pin a Dumfries back. If you play Gordon in that position, you're just concerned then when you don't have the ball. So fundamentally, it just meant rather than England were moving from a back four into a back three in possession, they were just starting within it. It put way less pressure on, say, Phil Foden, who played a different position because he played to the right of Jude Bellingham. But otherwise, those were the only fundamental differences really to England in possession, was Foden's positioning, and Saka was just starting his from a deeper position. That was it. And Saka was fantastic. I shit myself when he took that penalty, and everybody knows who I support, right? And he plays for the enemy. I
Yeah.
really felt nervous for him. I
too.
literally said,
Me
this
too.
feels like Stuart Pearce all over again. And when I said that out loud, I remembered, well, Pearce did score against Germany in '96. We'll be all right. And he took it and he did drag it a little bit. It obviously
He
goes in really
scuffed it.
nicely.
He
Yeah.
scuffed it.
I
Let's be
did
honest,
think,
he scuffed it.
oh,
But it
no.
wasn't your fear was not the penalty so much. It was the reaction and response should he
Yeah.
miss.
Yeah.
And
What it
that
would
was
have been
my
for him
fear
if
as
he
well. When I
missed.
looked at it, I was like, I don't want you to miss because I don't want all the crap that comes with it if you do miss.
And also, he'd been England's best player by an absolute
Yeah.
mile.
Yeah.
He carried everything that we did offensively was interesting throughout the whole game, basically went through Bukayo Saka. There's moments you're watching the game and it's like, just get it to him, because he's absolutely got them terrorized down that side. Now, again, he's probably going to play against Nathan Ake, I would presume, on Wednesday night. So there's a very different challenge. Ake's a very, very good, solid defender. And then if he comes inside Ake, he's going to walk into Van Dijk. So there's a very different challenge there on Wednesday night. But hopefully you use that to
I
create
think
opportunities in different
he's up to that
positions.
challenge. I think if you said to me, "Do I back Saka to give Ake trouble?" I definitely do, just because it's pace and diminutive, tricky, skillful, rather
Oh,
than a
can he
physical
damage? Of
challenge.
course, yeah.
I really
And
think he
I'm
can.
certainly not sitting here going take him out the team like a lot of people were doing this time last week. And I don't expect anyone's doing that now. I'm just saying there's a far bigger challenge in terms of that area of the pitch for England on Wednesday night than what they got here. Because, as I said, against Arbisher and Rodriguez, Saka had them in so much trouble. That was a weak spot for them. Arbisher's been a big positive of Switzerland on the ball. It was a big weakness defensively in that game on Saturday.
Would
So,
you bring Gahey back in again then, or do you think
yes,
stick with it
yeah, I
and
think,
drop Concept, but stick with the three, or kind of, let's call it this
yeah, I think
air quotes three?
it's definitely stick with this now. There's a real flip here because this is, I can't paint it any clearer than this. That was England's best performance so far on Saturday in this tournament, but it was still nowhere near good enough.
You happy with Mino next to Rice? I thought
Yeah,
Mino had a good game as well. I'm happy with Mino next. I would make one change, James,
yeah,
and I've wanted this change from the beginning.
I like Kobe Mino because he's brave enough to glide past people and get involved. I think positionally there would be a concern defensively, like if certain people want to go and stand in that half space. I think, like, particularly if we play France in the final, there would maybe be a little bit concern about that side of the pitch and him just getting pushed too deep. But then he's also got the threat that he can carry people the other way. I think he links really well. I think he's obviously learning how to play with Saka on the outside of him is different to what he's got at Manchester United. I think it was helped by a lot of this game having Phil Foden in front of him a lot, so you could play more vertical passes. England played vertical passes better in this game. 3 minutes into the game, Declan Rice played a pass, which I was so happy with. It was just that shouting to Simmons pass in the Romania-Netherlands game. I was like, yes, finally, bit braver on the ball. And there was little aspects of that made Saturday better. But then the longer it went on, and we didn't score in that, because I thought the first half performance was fine, but you could only sit there at half time and go, yeah, but we've created a call again, basically. But this does feel better. And also credit had completely limited Switzerland in that first half. And remember, Switzerland had destroyed Italy a week earlier. So, give them some credit for what they've done defensively, but we also hadn't really created anything. And it was like the longer it went on, Switzerland obviously was gaining in confidence. And that period up to Mbolo scoring, you knew it was coming. Just getting to an
Yeah,
inevitability point where the game had hit an impasse where it was like, well, England need to get the full time here at 0-0, make changes, or Switzerland are going to score. And obviously, I scored the goal before he'd made the changes. And then, quite frankly, that then just becomes throw shit at a wall. There isn't.
uh,
I'll stand up for Gareth a lot, but that's just we've gone 1-0 down. Then there's 15 minutes to go. Just throw shit at the wall. That's all that is.
I want to see one change. And I've wanted it all tournament. And I want to see, well, and who Cole Palmer comes into the team for, I don't know. But I want to see Cole Palmer in the team. And in the current structure and formation, it's got to be Phil Foden really that drops out. And I don't feel like it's not because I'm down on Phil Foden or critical of Phil Foden in the way that some people are like, oh, he's playing shit, get him out. It's more, I want Cole Palmer in the team. He's been the best player in the league. When he comes on and has come on, there's just something about the way that when he gets the ball, he always seems to be in a lot of space and always head up, looks up, and is looking to find the right pass and seems to have a time on the ball. This creativity issue, I reckon Cole Palmer is going to fix it.
The only
I
thing
want
I
to see
would
him in the team.
the only thing I would add to that is there is every chance that England have got to go and play 4 hours more football. And Palmer does look incredibly effective off the bench. It's the only thing I'd add to that. I kind of agree to
I
you. If
don't I don't doubt that Foden would be effective off the bench should he come on. So this is not me saying like I just think Cole Palmer gives us something, a bit of control. I feel like when he gets the ball, it's suddenly like, okay, he's the one that's driving play. But Bellingham's not a number 10 in the way that someone who has a little bit more vision and creativity is. He's driving forward a little bit more all action, let's say. But I think Cole Palmer just has something about him that makes me feel like give him the ball and everything will be all right, you know?
I think Palmer's got an extraordinary eye for the right decision making, but I do think it will be better served for England later in games at the moment. That's my general feeling on that.
Then
I
the
think
question is how long do
I
you give him?
think
Because if you give him 10 minutes, you're almost like, well, just you can't affect a game
no,
enough.
no, it should be more. We should be talking sort of 60-ish here. But it
Yeah.
depends on game state and where you're at as well. Because, if let's be honest, this game was 0-0 at 60 minutes. Then there was a 10-minute, 15-minute period where Switzerland really began to get on top. And for me, it was right. The tide is turning now. Get him on and make them start worrying about what he's going to do. I think Gareth waited too long. I think the reason I prefer it that way around with Palmer coming on the Foden is I think Foden's real strength when he's at his best is the way he can receive and glide past people. Like I
Yeah.
think the chances are you're bringing one of them into a game state situation that we need them to come on and impact and do something. And I just think at that stage, Palmer's got a little bit more variety in terms of his delivery of final pass from a creativity perspective. And I just find that's going to be more useful later in the game. That said, if Palmer started and we get ourselves in front, then I think Foden is way better in terms of his defensive diligence than Palmer.
Mhm.
So that could play in. And maybe we should think more about how we're winning the game at the start than how we win it at the end. Because reality here is England have won one football match and drawn four. So I'd certainly get the clamour for Palmer. If Palmer starts over Foden, I don't have a problem with it. Again, I don't particularly feel like Phil Foden individually played terrible, but I think we're all expecting him to go and win a football match for us, and it's never looked like happening during this tournament as we've seen him do for Manchester City. Gareth obviously wants to keep him in the team. I understand that. I like that more where he played on Saturday. I think that can be more threatening where he's receiving it in pockets, and because he's naturally just coming onto his left foot, then he can drive towards goal in a central area rather than almost feeling like he's got to come backwards. And obviously, if he does get shunted to the right, he's got Saka on the outside of him, and after time, that's where you want the ball to go anyway. So I like him in that area more. Jude, I think, playing to the left of him feels freer as well. So it wasn't all negative at the weekend. There were some positives about it. I think in terms of change that area, I probably wouldn't. I mean, I guess the one is Luke Shaw. I thought in his 40 odd minutes, I thought he looked absolutely miles off it, personally. But if you can get him in for trips, that feels better from a balance perspective massively. And it's worth saying he didn't play left wing back when he came on. He played left sided centre back.
Yeah.
But I think from the balance perspective, we'd rather, when we got the ball, we'd all rather that if it comes to our left winger, it's not Kieran Trippier. I'd have no dislike for Kieran Trippier. It's just not Kieran Trippier's game to be receiving the ball like back to goal as like a left winger. He wants the game in front of him. We'd all like in that scenario England to have a Shaw or a Gordon or an Eze or something a little bit different in that area. And I get it, right? Like I said, the system wasn't that far removed from what England have been doing. So then when we haven't got it, having Trippier at left back feels way more comfortable than any of the alternatives I mentioned, unless Luke Shaw can get himself fit. So
Agreed.
the 40 odd minutes would help him. Is he going to be ready to start now? I don't know. And then if he's not ready to start this one, if we're lucky enough to win, do you then start him for a final? There's that as well. I suppose it could be 120 minutes and then it's a final, and then do you have to change him back out the team? I think the one that really needs talking about, Suj, is Kane. A lot of people would change that. And one solution, by the way, to I want Cole Palmer in the team is to put him in the team for Harry Kane. And I know
That
most people would look at it as all Tony, but I
I
I
would rather
I I
Tony.
I said this pre-tournament. I felt if England didn't play with Harry Kane, the odd moments going, oh, Kane's got a back injury. What's going on here? What would your solution be? My solution would have been to play Phil Foden in that position personally, and then properly go and dominate. and let these guys properly be free and off the shackles. For Harry, if he's, like I said, after the Slovakia game, if he's not getting chances, which was a good thing in the Slovakia game, that at least he was having chances the longer it went on, you can feel like his involvement is non-existent. I mean, him getting compared to Ronaldo after the last 48 hours is probably something he dreamt of as a boy, but it's probably not the comparison he's looking for right
No,
now. It's the ineffectiveness of your number nine. And by the way, I hate to say this, but right now, Ronaldo's impact for Portugal has been bigger than Kane's impact for England. Because what Harry needs in this role, where you're asking him not to drop deep so short, even though his average position was like a centre midfielder on the weekend, but that's because he's seen so little of the ball in terms of service. But you are obviously hoping that these guys can create for him, so you're asking him to stay higher. When you are asking Harry to stay higher, you need people to run beyond him. This for Harry, what Harry needs is like an Anthony Gordon. That's what he needs. Even Saka, all Saka's good work largely is him carrying and beating a player. It's not in behind stuff. So unless Jude or Phil are going to go beyond him more, so you can rotate on occasion, there is certainly a case here to say, we're playing against people like Kanji, and he's going to play against Van Dijk on Wednesday. Are you better off looking at an alternative? Because I think Van Dijk, this is interesting. Van Dijk, I think, would rather play against Kane than say Watkins.
agreed.
Now Watkins ain't
Watkins'
coming.
movement is all over. He's much
Well,
more dynamic in the
yeah,
runs that he
in
makes and stuff.
periods where
Much
England
more.
have less of the ball, Watkins will probably try and take Van Dijk into places that he doesn't want to go. Harry Kane will do it centrally, and Van Dijk will either pass on the responsibility or he'll follow and go with. I also think it's pretty futile discussing this because Gareth is not going to take the captain out of the team.
I was exactly going to say the same thing, James. This conversation, we can have it if we want to. EA dropping
And
Kane and Kane's not coming out of the team. And also because of Kane's history and record, nor do I think he should. I would
no,
still
but
play Kane.
they've got to find stuff that's better for Harry. I have to look at it and be honest about this. One of the things I'll particularly on our Tottenham podcast on Patreon, we've discussed this over the years, and I've discussed it plenty since Harry left. It's like, would you take Harry back? And it sounds ridiculous. It's not like Harry Kane wouldn't improve Tottenham if he comes back, but my answer and conclusion is always the same. No, because you cannot play, Ange cannot play the way that he will want to off the ball with Harry Kane in the team. Can't. So England want to go and press and be aggressive. This is what I generally think, right? Don't think they can do it properly with Harry Kane in the team. So then you start breaking that down. You go, well, we've got one of the best goal scoring nines in the world, and that's unquestionable. But is he helping facilitate the best thing for this team? And there is an argument to say no. Is there a case to say you're better off without him? But I don't think the solution is then going, oh, it's Tony instead. I think it's something just wildly different. But he's not going to do it. And also, how many people this time last week would have gone, oh, I want Palmer in for Saka? Them noises don't feel so big this week.
Yeah.
And when Harry gets questioned, he does tend to remind people. And I actually think if he can get away from Van Dijk and get more into De Vrij's area on Wednesday night, I actually think he'll probably have some joy. So I get it. But no, I wouldn't take him out of the team either. Not at this moment.
No. Good,
Shout
good.
out,
Well, look,
shout out for the goalkeeper before we finish as well, Jordan, who I think people generally love now. All the kind of history stuff comes with him,
yeah,
like these mannerisms, and even like when he pointed at Shaqiri after Shaqiri hit
histrionics.
the bar from the corner, didn't he? Laughing at him. You think in a big moment, fair game to you.
I
It's
thought
what,
he was acknowledging fair play for doing it as
yeah, he
opposed to
was. He was
yeah,
saying like fair play for trying that, but also a bit like
yeah.
you didn't get me though, did you?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, when it's going well for Jordan Pickford, and I think you've got to let him go. Like if he's feeling confident, stuff like that, praise to him, let him go. And how many tournaments have we had where we end up with tournaments with Jordan Pickford just saying that he's been brilliant for England, and there's nothing in this tournament you could look back on with Jordan Pickford. Sometimes he goes too long with his delivery, but I also think that comes from tactical instruction. But yeah, he's been brilliant for England again, largely, and you do go into those shootout moments and think, he'll save me one. and he has now. That's 4 competitive shootouts he's been involved in with England. He saved a penalty in all of them. And on the case of penalties as well, that is the calmest I've ever been before an England penalty shootout, ever. Not because I thought we'd win, but you're thinking sometimes you've done it and you go, oh my God, who's taking a penalty here for us? And this was more like one you were going, well, I can name 5, and there's still a couple more there I think would be good penalty takers as well afterwards. So I think there was a real confidence um, that they're going. The only ones I was worried about are Palmer. I know he scores them all for Chelsea, but I'm not in love with his technique particularly. And Saka I was worried for.
Yeah,
Jude, Ivan, Tony, and Trent didn't really doubt at all. Tony's absurd, isn't he?
he's a joke.
I
And
mean, he's been highlighted a lot, but with him not looking at the ball, but we've all seen it before for Brentford. But he's insane to then do it on that stage.
he's a joke. I love his confidence. He's a pain in the arse, and the way that he bullies centre backs when he's playing against you and holds them and wins fouls is stupid. But I can't knock it. And there was obviously stuff in the media around the fact that obviously look, I was just dreading the newspapers should one of them miss and what have you. It didn't happen. But take the race side thing aside. Palmer's 22, Bellingham's 20, Saka's 22, Trent is 25, which is crazy considering how much experience and football he's played. And yeah, okay, Tony's 28, but they're all, the first 3, they're babies. They really are at 22 years old to be going into that situation,
Experience at
mate.
this level, Tony's got the least experience of
At
all of them,
least.
really. So
Yeah, and that for me was more than was more impressive than anything else. Just to be so young and to just take it on, like yeah, credit to him and definitely of all of them, like with Saka's history, that was the one that you were just like, thank God
who
that
do you
that's
think
gone
was
in.
sixth if it had gone to sudden death? Who do you think would take the
I'm
next
not
one?
sure. I mean, Rice has taken a few penalties for us back in the day. I think he would have been up there. I think to definitely he potentially could have been one. Um, yeah, I'm not sure.
I think Eze, mate. If Eze had
Yeah,
brought them up and taken the pen, I'd have been well confident about that. There's
yeah,
something to be said about this. Like a few people were saying where I was, like when Kane went off, it's like, oh, you're taking your penalty taker off now. It's like, yeah, but you brought an even better one on, in fairness. So
it's
it's
true.
not like a
It's
huge
true.
problem.
Yeah.
Um, England will fancy themselves if it goes to penalties again. I think we might not as fans, but I think they'll fancy it again. And that isn't going to make them open up and play better football more. It's going to make them believe. I think they think if it goes to penalties, we'll win. I think that's what they think now, which is, and again, for all the things people can criticize at Southgate, one thing he absolutely has done, forget the football for the minute, he's massively shifted the mentality of the squad. It's now
Individuals
second,
to become a team.
to believe in themselves on things like this, penalty shootouts, and also the winning mentality. It would almost be bizarre if England opened up and played great football now. Um, I think that from here we should win on Wednesday night. And we certainly can get beat. I think it's probably like a 60-40 game. I don't think the Dutch are better than Switzerland.
I agree. I agree. I think 60-40, I was going to go more 55-45, but that's the glass half empty in me. But I'm backing England to win. The final is the final, is a whole different kettle of fish. Let's just wait and see if we
That's
get there, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But right
exactly
now,
that. Yeah. Let's
I'm
deal with
backing
Wednesday
us
first.
to deal with Netherlands. And good, it's only a couple of days, James. It's not like a long wait before it all turns around. Football will be back tomorrow. But in the meantime, we'll be talking about a bit of other different topics and stuff. We've got quite a good schedule this week. Do you want to tell us what we've got to look forward to?
Yes, well, very bizarrely on Friday night, while most of us were being bored with Portugal. Actually, no, it was during the second half of Germany, Spain, just very bizarrely. The Premier League announced the fixtures for August and September in terms of TV selections. That means I don't need to wait for a game to open to start talking Sky Fantasy football with people. So we're going to do Sky Fantasy tomorrow. Wednesday we'll cover off Tuesday's semi-final and talk a bit more about England against the Netherlands. We might have a bit more detail then. I mean, the way it's been going with England, we'll know the team by Wednesday morning. And then Thursday, Clates will be with me to talk over the England semi-final and preview the final. And then I'll be streaming on Friday as well.
Lovely jubbly. Okie dokie. Well, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button wherever it's on your favorite podcast app, YouTube, and you'll get notified as soon as all of our content goes live. Another week of Euros content before we might turn our eyes back to a little bit of regular football, Premier League, and all that kind of
And
stuff as
FPL,
well.
if you're listening, it's the same message. Can you wait till
Chill,
after it's gone wrong? Yeah. Cheers. Next
chill,
week. Yeah.
indeed.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please. Man child.